Melissa, please think it over, my mother said with her usual mix of disappointment and annoyance. We were in my parents' living room in Westlake, a fancy neighborhood in Austin, Texas. The room hadn't changed at all since I was a teenager: heavy furniture, quiet atmosphere, and the same old air that made me feel like a kid again. I'm Melissa Anders, 35 years old, and I work as the African Regional Development Manager for the Brighton Group. I've helped build luxury resorts all over Africa. After I graduated from Cornell's School of Hotel Administration, I started working right away. Now I make $300,000 a year. My job means everything to me. My recent project in Tanzania was a huge success. We made guests happy and still cut costs. People at the company respected me, and there were even rumors I might become an executive one day. But every time I came back to this house, all of that seemed to disappear. The Johnsons next door had their third baby, Mom said. They showed me pictures from the christening at St. David's Church. So beautiful. She used to be a stay-at-home mom but now helps out at church and does volunteer work. People in the community really admire her. Dad sat next to her, arms crossed, letting out his usual heavy sigh. He taught high school for over 30 years and still teaches part-time. He and Mom both believed family was the most important thing in life. Ashley, my younger sister, smiled brightly. I know a great guy named Jason. He sells real estate in Round Rock. Want me to introduce you? Ashley was the perfect daughter. She had a loving husband named Mark, 2 cute kids, Emma, 5, and Lucas, 3, and worked as a teacher. She visited our parents every weekend, always bringing the kids and enjoying Mom's cooking. I love my work, I said. Our projects help local people and protect the environment. Dad cut me off, shaking his head. Melissa, life isn't just about work. There are good jobs here in the city too. You don't have to go so far away. We'd had this talk so many times. My parents were always worried because I wasn't married. They often compared me to Ashley and her perfect life, even at family dinners, like at Kaba's Italian Grill. The topic always came back to marriage and family. But I had chosen a different path. Building amazing resorts in Africa was what I loved. On the living room wall were many photos of Ashley's life, her wedding, the kids, ballet recitals, school events. My only photo was a small one from my graduation, hidden in a corner. If a newspaper wrote about my work, Mom would fold the page and say, "It sounds too dangerous." "Oh, is it that late?" Mom stood up. "I have a church meeting. We're planning a new family support group." Just like that, the conversation ended in silence. Outside, the Texas sun lit up the street. My office on Rainy Street was only 30 minutes away, but sitting in this house, it felt like we were on different planets. My parents didn't understand my life, maybe they never would. But I still hoped, maybe one day, they might. Royal Safari Experience. The words lit up on the conference room screen. My breath caught. This was the biggest project the Brighton Group had ever done, worth $1.5 billion, with rooms costing $5,000 a night. A luxury resort near Kenya's Masai Mara National Reserve, designed to attract the wealthiest people on earth. The presentation was stunning. Guests would arrive by helicopter and be welcomed by Maasai warriors. An infinity pool would overlook the savannah at sunset. The buildings combined modern style with local traditions. CEO William Parker looked at me. His voice was serious. "Melissa, we need your leadership to make this succeed." Behind him, the giant screen showed the stunning African landscape. "This resort is for people with over $10 million in assets. They're not impressed by flashy things. They want real, meaningful experiences." I nodded. I'd read the data. 87% of our target guests wanted something real, not just luxury, but something they couldn't find anywhere else. The CEO walked to the window and looked out over the city. Old and new buildings side by side, that's our vision too, tradition meeting innovation. We're inviting top guests from 12 countries for a special 2-day tour. We'll give them the full $150,000 experience, for free. My heart raced. These guests were big names, nobles, investors, Hollywood producers. Their reviews would make or break the project. Then the CEO turned and said something unexpected. "Melissa, I want your parents to join the tour." What? I couldn't believe it. My parents? Why? He smiled gently. "You've done so much for us, Melissa, but I know your parents don't really see the value of what you do. I want them to experience it themselves." He was right. My parents never understood my job. Mom always pushed for a more normal life. Dad would barely react when I talked about my work. This tour includes everything: private jets, personal guides, exclusive events. Let them see what you've built. Tears welled up in my eyes. Maybe this was the chance I'd been waiting for. One more thing, he said, don't tell them ahead of time, make it a surprise. I nodded slowly. A surprise gift for my parents. I thought it would finally help them see me clearly. Thank you. My mother's cheerful voice echoed in the car on the way to the airport. We had 3 hours until takeoff. What do you mean? I asked, confused. She smiled, looking pleased with herself. We don't need you anymore. Ashley's coming instead. I froze. But this invitation is from my company. It's for you. Before I could finish, Dad tore up the VIP pass from his pocket. Golden paper fluttered onto the floor like broken promises. Ashley sat quietly in the back, looking guilty, but she already had her phone out, probably getting ready to post on social media. You're always busy with work, Mom said. Ashley takes better photos anyway. She'll make the trip look great online. I turned my head to look out the window. Morning sunlight washed over Austin's streets, but I felt cold. They had no idea what was waiting for them on the other side of the world. The golden morning light shone through the glass ceiling of Nairobi International Airport. Wow, this is so fancy, Mom's voice rang out in the VIP lounge. The lounge sparkled with crystal lights and polished African wood. Dad held a champagne glass, nodding in approval. Around them were important guests, a British noble in a perfect suit, a Dubai investor showing off his Rolex, a Hollywood producer deep in conversation. These were people who shaped the world. Miss Anderson, called the receptionist. Ashley stepped forward with a big smile. That's me. But the receptionist's smile faded for a moment. Something wasn't right. Melissa looked down at her tablet again, checking the information one more time just to be sure. Then someone spoke from behind her. Excuse me, are you Melissa Anderson? The voice was soft but firm. Around her, people started to quiet down. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Her mother stepped forward with a nervous smile, trying to sound confident. Well, I made a change. Melissa's not here, so I thought it'd be okay if I stepped in. We're family. After all, it shouldn't be a problem, right? She tried to stay calm, but there was a slight shake in her voice. Her mask of confidence was slipping. The fancy brochures handed out earlier had listed the participants: a British nobleman, a top investor from the Middle East, and even a Hollywood producer with an Academy Award. Melissa's father held one of those brochures in his trembling hands. What do we do now? He whispered. Her mother still tried to sound strong. It's fine, we'll just explain, they'll understand. But even she didn't believe her own words anymore. Ashley, Melissa's sister, stared silently at her phone. Her confident look was gone. She looked scared. Then the voice of a BBC reporter echoed through the VIP lounge. Now, let's hear from Melissa Anderson, Brighton Group's African Development Director, about her vision for this incredible new project. Cameras from all over, CNN, Al Jazeera, and more, were lined up in the room. Lights flashed. It was a global press event. Suddenly, Melissa's mother stepped forward and raised her voice. I'm her mother. I'll speak on her behalf. A strange silence filled the room. Reporters whispered. Photographers looked confused and checked their lists. Then came a deep, commanding voice. What is going on here? Asked CEO William Parker. His tone was sharp and serious. Behind him, several company executives stood with grim expressions. Ashley leaned toward her mom and whispered, Mom, this is really bad. Melissa's mother began to sweat. Her hands shook as she tried to explain something, anything. But the CEO didn't let her finish. Do you understand what this project means? He said sternly. This isn't just about building another luxury resort. The royal safari experience could change Africa's future for the better. The air in the room grew heavy. The British nobleman sat straighter in his chair, his polite smile gone. This is unbelievably rude. We flew in from London to see if this project was worth our time. The investor from Dubai was already on the phone, arguing with someone. With this kind of disorganization, we may have to pull our funding. This is a $1.5 billion project. How could this happen? His voice trailed off, but the message was clear. The Hollywood producer didn't seem angry. Instead, he looked amused. This would make a great documentary. The $1.5 5 billion betrayal, or maybe, illusions in paradise. His assistant quickly took notes. Meanwhile, the news started spreading online like wildfire. Family pretends to be VIPs at billion-dollar project. Brighton Group faces scandal, stock prices falling. Shameless act of the century. Ashley's hands shook as she stared at her phone. Her Instagram followers were disappearing by the second. Her online reputation, everything she worked so hard for, was collapsing. "This is Melissa's fault," her mother suddenly shouted. "She should have told us how important this was. She tricked us." Their father buried his face in his hands with a heavy sigh. At that moment, the large doors of the lounge opened. More than a dozen people in suits walked in. They all wore badges. Brighton Group, Legal Compliance Department. The CEO nodded at them, then looked back at Melissa's family. His face was no longer angry, it looked tired, disappointed. "I'm sorry," he said quietly but firmly, "but we can't ignore what happened here." His voice left no room for argument. "You will return home, immediately." Later that day, in the luxurious hotel lobby, Melissa's parents and Ashley were packing up in a hurry. The staff watched them closely. It was clear, they were being kicked out. They were handed a bill, $220,000 to cover cancelled reservations and emergency flight changes. Her father stared at the paper like he couldn't believe it. This isn't what we wanted." Her mother just whispered, "What have we done?" Ashley was still glued to her phone. "I've already lost over 100,000 followers." They walked through the grand lobby, now filled with stares and whispers. Just hours ago, they had smiled with pride in this beautiful hotel. Now, it felt like a nightmare. The automatic doors opened. Harsh sunlight poured in. A car to the airport was waiting. 1 month later, Melissa sat in her office back in Austin. Everything had returned to normal, at least on the outside, but her family was still dealing with the fallout. CEO William Parker stood beside her. "The board was impressed by how you handled things," he said. Melissa gave a small nod. She hadn't made excuses, she simply apologized and did everything she could to fix the situation. Ironically, the scandal had brought even more attention to the project. People were talking about it everywhere. "Your calm and strength under pressure, that's true leadership," Parker added. From the window, Melissa looked out at the city. Austin was changing. The area once full of old warehouses was now a busy business district. Sometimes change hurt, but it could also lead to something better. That evening, her doorbell rang. Melissa, it was her mother, but her voice was soft, no longer proud or demanding. Her father stood beside her, holding a warm paper bag. The smell of her favorite lasagna from Caba's Italian grill filled the air. "Come in," Melissa said gently. They sat together in the living room. No one spoke at first. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was painted red and gold. In the fading light, Melissa noticed tears sparkling on her mother's face. "I'm sorry," her mother whispered. Her father sighed, then added, "We didn't try to understand your life. We pushed our dreams onto you." The room was quiet. Then Melissa softly replied, "I should have explained better, too. I didn't help you understand my work, I just pulled away. That wasn't fair either." Her parents looked surprised, then touched. Her mother shook her head gently. "No. You've done something amazing, we just didn't see it." The smell of lasagna filled the room. It reminded them all of home, of what really mattered. 6 months later. It was Thanksgiving. The whole family was together again. Her mother looked at a dish Melissa had made using a Kenyan recipe. "Will you teach me how to make this sauce?" Lately, she'd been watching African cooking videos and learning more about Melissa's work. Ashley smiled from across the table. She was now using her social media to support women working in all kinds of jobs. "My following is smaller, but I feel like I'm actually reaching people now," she said. "Hey Melissa, want some photography tips for your next project?" Melissa smiled. "Of course, you've got a great eye." Their father folded his newspaper and looked around the table. "Melissa," he said, "would you speak at the university next week? I want my students to hear from someone who followed a different path." On the table were dishes old and new, traditional turkey and pumpkin pie, next to spicy Kenyan dishes, different flavors, different worlds, all coming together. Outside, the Texas night sky was quiet. Inside, something had changed. A new story had begun, one of understanding, respect, and a family finally learning how to love one another.